Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is class number 2 of Sutta Studies 2022, the 3 Cardinal Discourses. And what this means is these are the 3 principal or main discourses. The Buddha's teachings are all delivered at the very beginning of his teaching. I guess we say he had already the, kind of all the power of his enlightenment. Right after his enlightenment, not too long after his awakening. And so he put all of some of very, very succinct teachings all together in these 3 discourses. And probably if anybody was to study these well, they remembered these 3 discourses, plus perhaps one more, either Satipatthana Sutta or Anapanasati Sutta, which tells you how to meditate. Then probably, if you practice it, you could realize the first, at least the first level of awakening. That's how important they are. Okay, so buckle your seatbelts. So the first one is the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. And as you probably hopefully remember from last time, this was the first discourse that Buddha gave in the deer park at Isipatana to the first 5 disciples. So this was maybe some people might think this is a little bit, it's a little bit too organized to be his first discourse, but it's probably, at least it's a very, it's kind of maybe a very highly edited approximation of what Buddha said, very likely. Because there's when at the time of the first council was Venerable Ananda, who recited the Dhamma, and he wasn't there at this time. Venerable Ananda didn't become the Buddha's attendant till 20 years after the Buddha was awakened. But one of the things that he asked for was that if the Buddha ever gave some teachings and he wasn't there, the Buddha would repeat them or inform him, you see. So very likely he at least asked the Buddha, what was your first teaching? So maybe the Buddha couldn't exactly remember. I don't know if he had that kind of memory, but, but exactly what he said, but at least in principle anyway, what the principal teachings were. So with this first one, which is literally the setting forth of the wheel of Dhamma, Dhammacakka, and the important part of it is that this was the setting forth. There were these teachings which the Buddha discovered, didn't invent them, he discovered them. They were already taught by previous Buddhas, but had been forgotten. As the Buddha said, he found an ancient path. So the teachings were there. They were part of, you can say, the human history or something or other, but they got forgotten. And the Buddha rediscovered them. So this was the opportunity when that kind of teaching now entered the world, this particular era, They say this particular era of, the commentaries think, say, 5,000 years. The Buddhist sasana is supposed to persist for 5,000 years. So we're already halfway point. So you better work on it because it's fading away. So, some people say it's the Dharma ending age, the Buddhist teaching is getting lost. It's like a gradual decline. People get distracted by all kinds of things, more and more. So, but also at the halfway point, there's also, I guess the tradition says that there'll be a great flowering of the Buddhist teachings at the halfway point before the final disintegration. So we're at that point right now. So you're making history. So anyway, this particular teaching the Buddha gave, these are the kind of main principles which, are the kind of the hallmarks of the Buddhist teachings, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. And he starts off by, as you remember, he's talking to he's teaching his first 5 disciples who were with him when he was doing the ascetic practices, the mortification practices. And the Buddha was very, very diligent. He was the most diligent of these 6 who were practicing somewhere in some park, not Isipatana, but somewhere else. And they were very, very diligent. But the Buddha was the most diligent of these practitioners. So they were hoping. He said, "Oh, he's going to have the breakthrough. He's the most diligent. He'll find the way. Then he can teach us." You see. But then what happened? The Buddha gave up austerities. He practiced them so diligently that he collapsed. He realized, oh, this is not the way to Nibbana. Just the same as he had left his 2 meditation teachers and said, this was not the way to Nibbana, try something else. But with the seeing the limitations of the ascetic practices, he realized he had to invent his own way, discover his own way of practice. Because meditation and asceticism, these were the 2 main ways of spiritual practice in the Buddhist time. They're not so popular today. Meditation is maybe, but not asceticism. It used to be when the early Christian monks were out in the desert. They also practiced a lot of austerities, but it didn't catch on so much. But at that time, there were lots of so-called Christian saints. But anyway, the Buddha decided to practice the middle way. So when he met his first 5 disciples who abandoned him, then the first thing he says is, "This is the middle way. Asceticism, which you've been practicing more or less." He didn't say that, to them. He didn't. But asceticism is not the way. But also self-indulgence. Self-indulgence is not the way either. Must find the middle way. And then maybe he was contemplating when he was walking all the way from Bodh Gaya to Isipatana. I don't know how far it is, but anybody ever walk there? No, not anybody here? No. 300K? What's that? A week? 10 days? 10 days? No. He took 2 months, but he was under these 7 different trees. You see, he only had 10 days left. Yeah. So, 2 months and 10 days. Huh? No, he had from the full moon of May, June, July. He had 2 months, and he spent 50 days under the trees. So he only has 10 days left. 11 days to walk from Bodh Gaya to, right? My mathematics is, I still got a brain somewhere, I think. Or part of one anyway. So he had 10 days to walk. Anyway, maybe when he's walking that way, he thought about how he's going to present this. Because first of all, he had these doubts, who will understand me? But maybe these 5 disciples will understand it. So he realized, okay, I can't teach them about, I can't be too insistent about rejecting asceticism, because that's their thing, you see, that's what they were doing. But also not self-indulgent, so the middle way. What's the middle way? The Eightfold Path. So, again, it's sort of like, so it's a very auspicious number, 8. 4, 8, 7, 2, but 8's kind of complete, in the Indian way of thinking anyway, sort of auspicious number, 8. So anyway, then he mentioned this eightfold path, 8 different factors. And so then the monks began to think, oh, middle way, right, yeah. They've been going, extreme asceticism. So they missed out maybe mindfulness, they missed out maybe some samadhi. They had energy, of course, but there was some of the factors were missing. So then they began to recognize, maybe there's something in this, something new. Then the Buddha presents the Four Noble Truths, which, I would say, I shouldn't be, I'd be careful here, but I sort of, generally speaking, the philosophy of Hinduism, Brahmanism at that time was a bit fatalistic. Dukkha, old age, sickness, and death, for most people, you got no chance to get out of it. You're stuck with it. Yeah. But the Buddha is saying, hey, wait a minute. This dukkha, old age, sickness, and death, it has a cause. Craving. So if you reduce the craving, if you can abandon craving completely, then you have awakening. You're free of it. The cessation of craving is nibbana. So this was a new idea altogether. Before, it was sort of like I say, it's sort of like the philosophy there was sort of fatalistic. If you're really lucky, maybe the gods will favor you if you do lots of sacrifices. And for the ascetics, if they did lots of asceticism, but they were still a bit, sort of touch and go. It was not really causality based. The Buddha was talking about causality. If you remove the cause of suffering, then it'll cease. This was quite a new idea. Before, it was just left to the capricious gods. Depending upon the gods, what if they were in a good mood or not, you got enlightened. Or if you favored them well enough, did enough sacrifice or something. But the Buddha is saying, no, don't believe on these. Don't believe on the gods. You can do it yourself. Craving is created by you, and it can be reduced by you too, by this eightfold path. So this was a very kind of a unique way of approaching it. And once the 5 disciples, they recognized, this is a new teaching. They began to listen to it and contemplate. And because they already had probably very, very good sila, they had a very good foundation. I'm not sure if they were meditators or not, but maybe a little bit. Most of the ascetics did some meditation. But so they had a very good foundation already. All they needed was a little right bit of wisdom, right view, as it were. So when this seed was planted in them, then they could understand. So as soon as this discourse was finished, one of the monks, Cardinal, he already realized, oh, yes, I see now, I understand. Which was a very, very reassuring for the Buddha with all these doubts that anybody would understand him. And then somebody got it. Aha, it works. This enlightenment is just not a one-off for somebody like the Buddha. It can be realized by ordinary people, if you like. It's possible that somebody else can realize it. So at least Anya Kandanya became Anya Kandanya, the one who realized, first one who realized that the truth of the Buddha's teachings. But this was the first level he realized. It was Sotapanna, stream entry, and the first glimpse of awakening. It was the first glimpse of recognizing that this object, this Atman, it arises and it ceases. Whatever arises ceases. Just a causal principle. So before, as I mentioned, people are looking for a thing, looking for an object. Where is the ultimate essence of a human being? What is it? And there are many different theories around at the time. Some of the kind of philosopher mystics, some of them imagined it was a little pearl in behind your heart. Some was a little, lotus leaf being in the middle of your head or something. So they're looking for something. Then the Buddha just said, hey, there's no thing. It's just processes, rising and passing, rising and passing. So imagine if somebody gave you a totally different perspective on reality, like a slap in the face. I mean, a gentle slap. Wake you up. Slap to wake you up. Not to punish you, but to wake you up. And, Anya Kandanya saw the light. So he was the first one. And so it was very encouraging for the Buddha that he realized that people could understand this teaching now. It wasn't so difficult. Well, it was still not so easy, but it was still possible. People could understand it. So then he began to continue his teaching. There was 5 of them, but only one got the first glimpse after the first teaching. So he began to instruct the others. Didn't say what he actually instructed them with, or maybe they needed some samadhi practice, maybe they need some mindfulness practice. But anyway, he continued to instruct them for the next little while. I didn't say how long, I think it says how long, but then he delivered the second discourse, the Anattalakkhana Sutta. And this was, also very situational because, again, these were, they weren't Brahmin priests, his disciples, they were ascetics, probably similar to the Buddha as a kshatriya or something, but they weren't committed to just Brahmanic rituals, but they still had this belief. It's like even many of us who maybe are not Christians, many of us still believe in something like a soul. Yeah, or the Thais say vinyan or something, or vinyan's like a ghost or something, or there's always something there which goes on from life to life to life, And even if you can kind of imagine it maybe as like a bit more of a process, but still probably there in the back of your mind, you still think it's something. There was one story of I think he was one of the princes in the Buddha's time, and he wanted to find out. He was also kind of a philosopher prince maybe, wanted to find out the truth of this Atman. So he grabbed somebody, or maybe there was already a prisoner, and he weighed them before they died, you see? And then he weighed them after he died, because the idea was that this soul leaves the body at death, you see. So he weighed this person before and after, but the person weighed the same. So where, this obviously this Atman doesn't weigh anything, or is it how much does a ghost weigh anyway? Or he was studying them. He would I don't know, put them in a glass jar or something or other, and when they died, he would try and see if he could capture the soul coming out. Some people imagine it was like a little smoke coming out of the top of your head or something. But he couldn't find one. But when the Buddha realized that how to explain this to people who don't have that concept, their minds are already fixed on this concept of having a soul, having an Atman, a fixed thing, you see. So then he realized he had to find some skillful means, and maybe while he was teaching the 5 disciples, over the Rains retreat, he tried different methods, maybe, till he came upon the Anattalakkhana Sutta. And you read this, right? Yeah. So the 5 groups of grasping. Everybody know the 5 groups of grasping? Kanha. Kanha? Rupa, Vedana, Sankara, Vinyan, Nichang. Yeah. So what are they? Besides Pali words. So rupa, I mean, he translates, the translator of this chanting book translated as form, which doesn't do a lot for me, myself, personally. But basically, it's the body. It's the four elements, earth, fire, water, air, four elemental qualities, earth, fire, water, air, and whatever they constitute, however they're expressed. So basically, we're talking about a human being here. These five groups of grasping relate to the human being, so for all intents and purposes, it's the body. But it also is everything outside, you see. There's physical form too. You know, these are also made, the walls and the floor is made of the four elements too, just like the body is. Although maybe there's, you know, maybe it's not too much heat in the wall right now, but but it's still there. It's cold now. It's cold. There's also fire element is also cold. It's heat and cold. You see. So the Buddha points out that this body, if the body is not the self, he's saying, not the Atman, not a permanent self. If this body was yourself really, then you should be able to have control over it. Should be able to say, body, don't get old. Body, don't get sick. Body, don't get cold. You say, body, don't get cold rather than light the fire. But can you do that? Or you can, you know, people can look, they look at the body and what they can control usually. You know, you can walk when you want to. Yeah, well, at least when you're younger anyway. You can do certain things that you'd like to do. You know, you can eat, you can raise your arm, you can sit, you can walk. You know, when you have the intention to do these things, you can do it. But there is limitation too. If you look at the limitations, like old age, sickness, and death, you know, can you prevent the body from getting old? No. Can you prevent the body from getting sick sometimes? You can you know, try the best you can, but still the body does get sick. You know, has its ailments and its frailties and whatever, you know, and eventually death. Can't prevent death. Nobody can prevent death. Not the richest person in the world can prevent death. Although I hear some people are working on it. Yeah. Some of the big tycoons are investing in technologies to be able to prolong the life anyway, if not to end death, end life. End death, right? To extend life, yeah. So the Buddha is pointing out the most basic experience of, you know, kind of our belief in self means control, right? This is my life. I can do what I want. Yeah, really? Can you really do what you want? Within certain limits, you know. Can you within certain limits? Sure, but if you look at those boundaries, then you meet you come to the end of your comfort zone. Oh, I can't do that. I can't extend the life of the body. Yeah, I can't stop old age. You know, even with all my, you know, anti-aging cream and all this stuff, you're still going to get old. The second of the 5 groups of grasping is feeling. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Yeah, first of all, we need to get a little bit of a sense for it, what feeling is. Yeah, these are the 5 groups of grasping, are the 5 fundamental life principles. 5 fundamental life functions. The body, the feelings. The third one, sanya, I translate as recognizing. It is a certain quality of the brain, of the mind. Being able to recognize, which is associated with memory. I feel like you can just say memory. for sanya. And then the fourth one is sankhara. A little bit hard to translate, but it's like it's all the mental activities. It's all the mental activities you have. It's the negative ones, lobha, dosa, moha, greed, aversion, delusion, the sankhara, but also the positive ones, samadhi, mindfulness, are also sankharas. But the most most common factors running through it, most common factor running through it is intention, volition, will. So you can follow your kilesa, your defilements, or you have the intention to get out of them too, to a certain degree. So intention, volition, will is a possibility to actually change things. If there wasn't this possibility to change things, then you have your kama vipaka, you can't be free. You're stuck with it. You're just a prisoner of all the things you've done in the past. But you can make a choice right now and try and, they have momentum to them, but you have the possibility to work against them best you can. To make some changes. Maybe it's not easy, but it's possible, at least to try. And the fifth one, vinyan, is a difficult one. They translate it normally as consciousness, which in English doesn't mean anything really. Psychologists are still arguing endlessly what is consciousness. Nobody's found out yet. Yeah. But the Buddhist explanation of it is vinyan, is basically just a very rudimentary kind of knowing, like there is sense knowing. You recognize, you see, you hear, you smell, you taste, you touch. Your thinking going on. You're aware of that. But you don't know, it's sanya which says what you actually see. There's a sight here. I can see this light, this round light in front of me here. That's vinyan, is just recognizing there's something there. And the sanya that says, oh, it's a light. When I first saw it, I had no idea what it was. I thought it was my halo. Ajahn Tiradhammo, I guess. Yeah.
He said consciousness is intuitive mindfulness.
Yeah, well, everybody has their own interpretation. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Just a very, very rudimentary kind of knowing. Just the know, very basic. See, for most people, in English anyway, consciousness implies more than just bare knowing. It implies that you understand it, cognize it, you understand it, that which mixes up this vinyan with sanya. But the Buddha is trying to keep them separate, you see, because vinyan is like a pure state. It's just like plain water. Then you put some flavor into it, you see. The flavoring is the sense impressions, you see. But if this vijnana does not get involved with sense impressions, it just stays with the bare knowing, undisturbed. It's like I don't want to use some people call it pure consciousness. Just consciousness, just knowing. You're not sleeping, not dreaming. There's knowing there, but it's not being disturbed or influenced by anything else, by memory, by sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, undisturbed. So when you understand it that way, then you can abide with the knowing and not be caught up with all the activities going on in the brain, for example, or the mind, you see. Not getting caught up with sankharas, or memory, or feeling even. But things like feeling is also a very, very rudimentary or fundamental function, you see. We all have feeling, but then it goes on to sanya, in the sense perceptions, you see. Then it gets very complicated because then the feeling gets influenced by how you felt before, your old conditioning comes in. And it's not just, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral as it is right now. Now it's got some interest, it's got some influence, it's got some attachment. It's getting all messed up now. But if you just be aware of the feeling as it is, recognize it rises, passes, rises, passes. Pleasant, unpleasant, you don't have to engage with it. So, when there's pleasant feeling, most people get lost in the wanting it, desire for it, you see. Unpleasant feeling can lead to aversion. Neutral feeling just into dullness or delusion. You need something to happen. So anyway, these 5 groups of grasping, there's the understanding of them, and then there is, the meditation on them. First of all, what are they? They're very, very fundamental functions. They're so common functions of our being that most of us don't even recognize them. They go on automatically. There's knowing, there's sight happening, thought arises in the mind, and then there's sanya comes into it, and then the sankhara comes in and starts to influence it, and you start thinking about it, analyzing it, and add more to it, and then it's more sanya, and then more feeling, and then more, oh, what a mess. Back to the breathing. Just be aware of breathing. It simplifies the whole process. And then to reflect, these teachings are to give us some reflections, a new way of looking at things. Normally people look at the body and they immediately say, oh, this is mine. But then if you reflect like this, if this body is mine, then I should be able to say, body, don't get old. Oh, hey, come on. Did you hear that? Come on, smarten up. Come on. Didn't you hear what I said? Don't get old. But then you notice, it's not following my desires, not following my command. So I guess it's not mine then. That's a realization if you can reflect that way and realize, then the result is it's not mine. Then you get a glimpse of anatta, no permanent self. There is body still here. I didn't deny it. I don't deny the body. I just recognize that it's not mine because I have no control over it. Yeah? So the body's still there, and it now has its own. I begin to recognize it or acknowledge it as it really is, the way it really is. It's impermanent. It's not a permanent self. Just this way. It has this particular functions. It has this particular expressions. It has this particular way of functioning. And rather than putting my own interpretations onto it, the body, you should. Yeah. There was one time I gave a retreat in Switzerland, and there was a young man there, and he was maybe in his 20s or so, and so he was quite fit. And then there was some older people there. There was one who was retired anyway. So this elderly lady was sitting there meditating, cross-legged, and this young man couldn't do it. Yeah, he had been in a motorcycle accident, and he had pins in his knees. You see, so he couldn't sit. He had to sit in a chair. This old lady in front of him was showing him off, sitting cross-legged. So he got really, really angry with his body. For the interview, he was hitting himself, hitting his knees. This body just won't behave. It won't do what I say. It won't do what I. They said, "Wait a minute, wake up." I didn't slap him, but of course, this body's not yours. It's not your fault that it's got pins in your body, metal pins. It's not going to behave like this older lady who doesn't have pins in her knees. You see, but it was very hard for him to recognize, that this body wasn't obeying him, and the body he was in a young body, and it should behave, as he tells it to. Maybe the elderly lady had realized by now, she's already been screaming at the body to do things, and it hasn't for all these years. So she's finally learned the lesson, So just let the body be as it is. Yeah. And when you can relax, when you receive the body as it is, relaxed in the body, it doesn't matter if it gets old. Yeah. You can relax, just the way it is. You're in harmony with the body now because you're not imposing upon it your own fixed ideas, how it should be, or how you think it should be. So when we begin to realize this, bring in these reflections, we get different perspective. These feelings. We all want to have happy feelings, right? But are they there all the time? Yeah. You don't like to have unpleasant feelings, but are they there all the time? Fortunately not. Seems like it sometime when you have a long meditation, but but all you have to do is make one little movement, one little mindful change of posture, and changes. At least temporarily, anyway. And then sanya, perceptions. And many of us, I guess different people identify with different of these 5 groups of grasping. Some people, they're the kind of, maybe the kind of athletic people identify with the body more, you see. There was another man I met in England, and he was actually a very good rock climber. You know what rock climbing is? I know nothing about it, but they'd climb on these rock faces, and it was only about 20, 30 meters high, but if you fell off, you could still kill yourself. So he'd go up these rock faces just with his fingers and his toes, you see. And I thought, this is a bit odd. But what else do you do when you're a young man in England? And they only got 30-meter high rock walls to climb up, But anyway, he was, and I happened to pick up a book that he had in his bookshelf, because he had all these books on rock climbing. And I was flipping through the pages, and then I noticed his name. First climb unassisted. That one. First climb unassisted. He was actually a professional rock climber. But he got arthritis in his fingers and toes from this extreme sport, you see. And it was very, very humbling for him to have to recognize he couldn't do it anymore. So anyway, he took up meditation then. Which more healthier sport. It just gets arthritis in your knees rather than your fingers. But some people identify with their memory, maybe. They have their memories, their old memories, and so, when they start to feel uncomfortable, or they feel whatever, they feel insecure, they go back to their memories. Oh, the good old days, and people get older. Sometimes they say older people keep hearing the same old stories over and over again, But when you begin to study the memories, then you realize just how unreliable they are. They're not permanent. They're impermanent. We're just writing a new story all the time, you see. There are a few strong impressions that we, of course, that's how you remember things. They're very strong impressions, either physically, somatically, or emotionally, or mentally. The first time you saw this place, a very strong impression. Then you rewrite that. And then you bring it up, and that strong impression now gets replayed as another story about it. And it's more dramatic than it really was. How many times have you gone to a place that you really got excited about? Go back to the second time, and it's not big deal. No big deal here. Your mind's changed, your body's changed, the weather's changed. So if you can at least recognize your memories, they are very time dependent, time and place. Mental formations, or the mental activities, there's all kinds of them. Some people are great, you can say, intellectuals maybe. They get a great deal of well-being, happiness out of their fancy thoughts, But they're all impermanent. When your body is getting aged, your mind's getting weaker, your way of thinking, your thinking process begins to slow down. To the extent that some people, they get these people live to be very, very old these days, so they get dementia and Alzheimer's, and there's somebody I knew, they had, I think their father or somebody had Alzheimer's or something, and they said it's very, very strange, this person. They look exactly like my father, but I don't know who they are. I don't know who you are. Their mind's completely gone. But they have exactly the same body as their father. But there's no personality there. There's no father personality anymore. That part of their brain which has the memories and had maybe the thinking, way of thinking, the habitual ways of thinking and relating, and the sense of humor or something, totally gone. So all it is a certain chemical reaction in your brain, and when they get older, it's gone. If you identify with it, then you're stuck with that impermanence. It goes away, and you feel lost, confused, angry, maybe. I don't know if people that have Alzheimer's don't even know that they're gone, so they don't get angry, I don't think. They're very, very few emotional reactions, but some people, when they forget things, they get very angry and frustrated, but it's just the states of mind, that's all it is, rising, passing away. And probably, they did some study somewhere of some nuns, I think it was, Christian nuns, because they lived to be very, very, quite elderly, see? They're all in their 90s, and they didn't show signs of dementia. And they were very surprised at this. What is it about them? Their lifestyle? Was it what they ate? Was it getting up early in the morning? Was it the praying, whatever? So they began to try to study them, and they found out when they're allowed to do some autopsies on these nuns. They found out that many of them had dementia, but had no symptoms. Because they were identifying with God, I guess, rather than their own body. I don't know what that was. But didn't have the same attitude of, this is my body. They had surrendered to God, I guess, of their philosophy, where they put it, So disidentified with their human form, and they were now just the instruments of God or something. So they didn't show signs of dementia. So anyway, these are reflections. See, the Buddha is giving us these reflections to give us a new way of looking at things, which is different for most people. Most people, the average, the unenlightened person, is always looking for self. Yeah, everything you look at, we grow up with a sense of a self, so we keep seeing the world through this lens of self. So immediately something comes up, and you immediately say, "Oh, that's mine," or "This is me." Just the automatic first thought that comes in your mind. And Buddha is saying, wait a minute, look again, reconsider this. Is this really yours? So when you reflect like this, and the Buddha also gives this, you can say this kind of question and answer session. You've heard it before, yes, yeah. So is the body permanent or impermanent? Okay. What is impermanent, painful or pleasant? Okay, right. And is it right to regard then what is impermanent, painful? Is it fit to regard it as yourself? No, Venerable Sir. Yes, right. Yeah. She's heard the tape, so she just repeats it. Oh, chanted, okay. Oh, yeah. But in English too? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, yeah, cool. So, but do you understand it?
Yes, because it's in English too.
No, I mean, do you? Have you realized it yet?
I did understand that.
Yes. You got the information anyway. Yeah. But then when you contemplate it that way, I mean, if the Buddha is saying these things, he's talking to the monks directly. Is it permanent or impermanent? And then it's impermanent, yeah, and it's painful. Then is it fit to regard that as yourself? Well, it's impermanent and it's painful. Do you want it to be yourself? No, thanks. No. I think I'll choose a new self, or no self. It's the only safe way out. Yeah. So then the Buddha, the reflection, then the contemplation, meditation, the most succinct of the meditations are that therefore, bhikkhu, whatever body, whatever form of body there is, past, future, present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, whether it is far or near, all bodies should be seen with right wisdom as it really is. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. Right? You see that? It's not mine. I wonder why the Buddha put it that way, because, this is not mine, because now just noticing just how quickly the mind comes up. This is mine. Yeah, this is mine. This belongs to me. This memory. Oh, this is mine. This is my memory. No. This is really me. Me is mine first, and there's me, and then there's self. Self's a little bit abstract for many people, but the first impression is this is mine. This thought is mine. This feeling is mine. Yeah? Right? You notice that? It's automatic, even after all these years. But then you're going to stop and think, reflect, meditate, and reflect. Oh, no, it's not mine actually. It's just something I learned, in kindergarten, in school, in high school, in university. I learned that, but it's all wrong. No, it's not mine. It's not me, not myself. So most people don't never have heard this before. They never even think like this, never even reflect like this. So, they reflect the other way around. It's always mine and me and myself. So the Buddha gives us this reflection to point out to us the way to see with right wisdom as it really is. But it requires some contemplation, of course. Just to, at least to know about it is the first step, but to actually put into practice every day, contemplate deeper and deeper, and perhaps, the result of this is that seeing in this way, the wise, noble disciple becomes disenchanted. This is the word nibbida, disenchanted, or I translate it as disillusioned. When one sees that it's not the way one has normally thought it would be, this body is yours, sees, oh, it's not mine actually. Then you get disillusioned. The kind of magic about it, the mystery of it, now has been exploded, and it's not the way you think it has been all these years. You've been fooled all this time, and so you get disenchanted. Your kind of a fantasy world now crumbles, and then you get this sense of in nibbida and Thai has a lot more meaning, doesn't it? Nibbida is world weariness. Yeah, but it's a certain, not depression, but it is a certain amount of kind of disillusionment and not quite despair, but not. I mean, it still has a positive quality to it, in a spiritual sense. But it can be, it can be a little bit, as far as a worldly sense, it can be a little bit like despair or. Yep. Now you feel disappointed, yeah. Yep. You go into the shop looking for your favorite fruit, and it's not there. disappointed, disenchanted. My favorite caramel chocolate is not there. And then after disenchantment, there is dispassion. One recognizes that now one is no more excited or disturbed or upset either about it. This is the way it is. So a certain amount of then peace of mind sets in there when there's disenchantment, and then dispassion, and passionless, we say, instead of passionlessness. So seeing those things, recognizing that now one has been disappointed and now one has given up. No, I'm not being fooled by these anymore. Then one recognizes that there is that knowledge arises. The mind is liberated from these things. Destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived out. There's no more in this state of being. So you have this realization that, I'm not going to be fooled anymore by this. I won't automatically say this is mine anymore. Oh, no. That's foolishness. You recognize, it's not mine. Then you can abide more frequently, more often in, you can say selflessness, or you can say in a state recognizing a recognition of non-self, your natural state of being then. So when these 5 disciples heard this, even I guess most of them by then were already Sotapanna. But when they heard this, the Lakkhana Sutta, finally the mind of all 5 of them was freed from the defilements through clinging no more. They heard that profound teaching, and then they finally realized, oh yes, right, no permanent self ultimately. And all these identification with all these 5 groups of grasping, past, future, present, etc., all faded away. So, that was, for them, it was, only took a few weeks, I guess, but maybe for us we have to do some more homework. At least we know what the work is, right? Yeah, what's the right work.
Promised that we're going to go to Nirvana.
No, I didn't promise. I just said this is the teaching for the higher paths. Higher teach depends on how you practice. Yeah. So we got time for the fire sermon here. Anyway, so the fire sermon is delivered to the 500 fire worshipping mat-adherent ascetics.
1,000.
Oh yeah, 1,000 fire worshipping mat-adherent ascetics. So they used to worship fire outside, and so the Buddha is pointing out, very, very, also very situational, that the fires are really inside. I guess they were, I don't know if they were meditators or not, probably not much meditation. They might have done lots of pujas, so they had some degree of samadhi in the puja outside. But then the Buddha is pointing out real fire is inside. And then he points out about these are the perceptual processes, the eye, the 6 senses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And then the external sense objects, sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, thought. And then the contact between the sense organ and the object. And then with that is the consciousness, or the vinyan, the knowing that you're seeing, the sight. Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought. As well as the feeling that arises automatically too. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So the Buddha is pointing out that this is the real fire. And it's not so literal. Don't take it so literally. Your eye's not burning up, and you're looking at the sun. But it's the fires that arise from the sight. The fires of passion that arise. So your eye is, possibly your eye is inflamed, is energized, you can say, energized. And then it stirs up the passions of greed, aversion, delusion. But if one isn't aware of this process, a lot of this, again, it just happens automatically. People wonder why they get angry, And it could be a sight, could be a sound. Somebody heard something, a smell, a taste, a touch, a thought. Just the other day I walked past that dead rat over there, or whatever it was. Nice, looking at the beautiful flowers and the trees, and then, oh, terrible smell. Was sniffing away at the flowers, and then, oh, rotting corpse. But then I could recognize, there is unpleasant smell. Just as there was pleasant smell, then there's unpleasant smell. Just came from a sense impression. Yeah. So I don't think I did. I didn't get angry anyway. The dead rat, what can I do with a dead rat? It's already dead, so. Can't get angry with, I can't get angry, but I didn't get angry with it. Just recognize it's only a sense impression. Well, it's a sense impression. But if most people don't even wake up to that, they wake up to the greed, aversion, delusion. And they feel they have to, fill their greed, or they have to accomplish their aversion to something. Recognize, it's only a sense impression. And some of it was just momentarily. The next step after the stink of the rat, the next step was back to the flowers again. So if I'd stopped there, only had the smell of the rat, maybe I'd get really angry and finally get a shovel and bury it. But it's only a sense impression. Rises, passes away. One step, and it's gone. Back to the other sense impressions. But of course, this requires some degree of observation, and you'd say maybe some samadhi, some calmness of mind, to be able to observe, how the senses. Maybe you're sitting very quietly, your eyes closed, and then you open your eyes, and then this is a sense impression, and there's already a thought arises of greed, aversion, delusion, maybe. But you could try the exercise. There are 6 senses, so there's 7 days in a week. So a little exercise. You try 1 day a week. Just try to give your attention to one sense, maybe. Yeah? Just try and be aware of, observe. Observing all the senses maybe is a bit too much, especially in the beginning. But just try 1 day. Monday will be sight day. Tuesday will be sound day. Smell, taste, touch. Of course, some impressions are maybe, like some of the senses are more active than others. But if you just begin to observe them, you can begin to see how they, the sense impression, and the contact is quite important because it's, there is the eye, physical eye, for example, and the object, but no contact, no vinyan, no knowing. There's that saying, I don't know what is it some kind of, there's images in English, the 3 monkeys, right? See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Not quite so simple, because your brain's still working evil. So it's not a matter of just shutting down the senses. You have to understand how they create the evil or the unskillfulness in your own mind. Yeah? Then you can have your eyes open and your mind is not stirred up by greed, aversion, delusion. Yeah. That's what it's called awakening. Yeah. You're awake, not closing your eyes, your ears, and just playing dumb. You have to be awake to understanding what's happening in your mind then. When you see the process, then one can be liberated from all these senses. They're still there, but one is not a prisoner of them by the effects of them. So again, once one has seen this way that these senses operate, and seeing this the arising greed, aversion, delusion, one can become disenchanted with these senses. One doesn't give so much energy to them. The beautiful sights, beautiful sounds, smells, tastes, touch, they do have an effect, but you recognize the limitation of it. If you depend upon that, you depend upon a beautiful sound or scent, like some people, they play music for meditation, you see. It does have an effect, but not all the time that the sound is there. So when the sound goes off, then no more meditation anymore. There's one person who came on a retreat with me in Switzerland, and she had done a mantra meditation before, and she got very good results. She could do this mantra chanting, but then during the course of the retreat, I said, okay, now we can just step away from your meditation object, like step away from I didn't mention to her, but I didn't even know she was using it actually. That's just using the breathing meditation. So now you can stop the focusing on the breathing. So she stopped her focusing on the mantra, and mind just went crazy. She didn't realize how she was dependent upon this constantly mantra chanting in her brain, in her mind, was making her quiet. And it did have an effect, but when it wasn't there anymore, she couldn't control her mind anymore. So quite limited, Has an effect, but very limited. So at least if one understands that, then one can make use of these things, like they do talk about, being in a good environment, being in a quiet place. The Buddha suggests going to the forest where it's nice and where it's green. Green's a very soothing color for most people. Green color, and it's a place which does not have a lot of insects around you. A comfortable place. Does help for meditation in the beginning, to calm the mind down. See, less distractions and disturbances. But it's also limited. You can never find the perfect place, perfect environment all the time. But once you have some experience of calm, you can bring it inside. And then you can maybe, shift outside your comfort zone, and you can maintain that state of mind, because it's in your mind. You depend upon things outside to maybe create the right effect, but the experience is in your own mind. And you take your mind with you wherever you go. Mosquitoes are not. Mosquitoes don't follow you, well, maybe they do. They're everywhere, but peace of mind can follow you wherever you go, you see. So that's the most important part of it. So freeing ourselves from the senses, understanding how they work, not just shutting them down, but understanding how they work. And maybe in the beginning, sense restraint can be helpful. Maybe I'll mention it next time. I think in the next talk will be about the formal path of practice the Buddha gave, from people hearing the talks and getting faith in the Buddha's teachings all the way to awakening. So after these 3 cardinal discourses, you have hopefully the good foundation for practice. Now the rest of it is to continue with the practice and see the results for yourself. So you leave that for your reflections.